We all talked for too long. So here's part 2 of the Flight Training Australia podcast 100th episode 101. We're going to be continuing our discussion about talking about careers in aviation, all that and more coming right up. So strap in and let's get into it.
Standby star 9000, 1013, Kilo 25. Coordinating aileron up on a bank balance, bank pressure rolling at 30 degrees. That's 30 degrees there.
G'day everyone and welcome to episode 101, part 2 of the Flight Training Australia podcast. The podcast all about flight training and flying in Australia and beyond. I'm your host, Trent Robinson. Thank you again for joining me. If you haven't yet listened to episode 100, stop, go and dial that one up and have a listen because this is part 2, a follow-on of that episode. We've been talking to the guys all about their careers in aviation, and now we get to get into the second part of the discussion. So I'm not going to talk anymore. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the second part of the 100th celebratory episode of Flight Training Australia. Go back to Austin. So, mate, I was just talking about the career progression and choosing. Chloe was very fortunate, fairly early on, and a great opportunity came up for her. But what are your plans now as far as, are you happy with what you're doing or looking at ATPLs and airlines one day? And how have you gone about that?
First of all, I'm definitely very happy where I am at the moment. I mean, it's everything what you can ask for someone that does want to go into the airline. And long story short, that is exactly where I do want to end up. That's the dream. It always has been the dream, and that's where I believe I will want to end up. ATPL-wise, I'm still smashing through them. I've just got a few left. Maybe potentially doing some airline interviews, probably maybe a bit later next year, even a potential MCC. But I think I've got flight planning, systems, and performance. The harder 3 to do. So we're just going to smash those out. But it's definitely something that is a little bit more difficult when you're working full-time in aviation as well. I mean, everyone in the podcast at the moment has done some sort of study whilst working, and even people just in general aviation in general, just to try and make the time and sacrificing, let's say, your social life to get the study done is really important. So we have a roster here at Aerometrics, or actually most survey companies do, where in your off period, you just smash out as much study as possible, get an exam done, and then even when you're on shift, after your day of flying, try and get some study done. Even if you got a short day, spend the rest of the day getting some study done as well. But at the moment, I mean, airlines, by the sounds of it, are hiring. The shortage is huge, by the sounds of it. People are getting hired left, right, and centre. I mean, from memory, Rex and potentially Air North are hiring like on the U120 or the Saab without even ATPL. And even if you just started them, that's a tick in their books. But I think you're more,
it is.
Guevara, your Qantas mainline. I think they are looking for an MCC, 1,000 hours minimum, and ATPL's done. And to think that this is how it is at the moment is crazy because, I wouldn't call myself, I'm a young pilot, but, some older gentlemen that have flown in this industry a lot earlier days, you need 2,000 hours and, an ATPL before you even get considered for an airline. So at the moment, we're in crazy times where people are just so desperate to move up.
Yeah, look, you're right. It is the Air North are doing exactly that. Anywhere from 800 hours up. The smaller regional airlines, Rex, they're just complaining about losing pilots. And it's always been that way. And it's unfortunate the shortages at the moment is exacerbating that thing. And they do, unfortunately, sort of bear the brunt. And that's why they've looked at things like cadetship programs and everything else to find ways to hang on. But it's the same with the beginner GA jobs as well, that people are moving out of those just as quick. And even positions like Hardy's, where you would be sitting there 800 hours till 2,000 hours normally. People are leaving so much quicker with opportunities that just have never been there before. So what sort of advice do you think you'd give, given your time again? This is something we talk about often. Would you have done some more ATPLs earlier on, or do you think the time is right for you with your level of understanding and sort of aptitude with things and able to study and understand the ATPL subject matter a bit better? Has that made that easier, do you think?
It's definitely a hard question. It's almost like a double-edged sword. If we're talking about the day and age that we're in right now, when we're talking about the day and age that we're in right now, you'd be crazy to try and not get them done sooner than later. I every day I kick myself thinking, Austin, you should have got it done. You should have had these done when you had your time off flying, because you'd probably be in an airline by now with the hours that you've got. But at the same time, having the knowledge that I have now compared to, say, 19, 20-year-old me is so much. It makes studying a lot easier. I'm a lot more mature, hopefully, than I was back then. And just life skills, traveling, and being in an environment where you do, I do multi-engine IFR. So when you're doing NAV, your PNRs, ETPs, meteorology, as an IFR pilot, you are in that every day, and traveling as well. So my advice would be at least try and get a job that has a progression onto something that's either a turbine or a piston twin, and honestly get those exams done as soon as possible. It's the one thing that's going to set you back more than anything else at the moment. Just try and get them smashed out.
I think the ATPLs are one of those things that it's almost everything else matters with trying to do it close to the training and everything else. But ATPLs almost stand alone, don't they? They're exams that are sort of thing you've got to get past. But when the time comes to know the ATPL style content, you've got enough background that you'll get taught how to fly that aircraft and you'll learn Part 121 and everything else, and it'll all fall into place then. So doing it several years before you may actually need it, I don't think it's a real penalty.
Oh, no, absolutely. And there are courses. There's Nathan Higgins up in Queensland. There's a gentleman in Jandakot that does it. There's online. So there's lots of, teaching in different styles of helping learning as well. And actually something else I've heard as well is the airlines are loving instructors at the moment. Having that ability to go into check-in training in their company seems very desirable. Thankfully, I did my instructor rating at Goldfield. In fact, Hubert and Kelvin did my instructor rating, so very, very appreciative of that. Great guys. But if teaching, I'm not recommending anyone to do an instructor rating purely for an airline purpose. Please, if you want to do an instructor rating, do it because you want to teach and thoroughly enjoy teaching. Yeah, please don't do it just to get into an airline, to get into a check-in training position, because it's almost a waste of your own money and also a waste of other people's time and money as well.
It definitely is something you want to be doing because you enjoy it. You can do it as a stepping stone, but you want to have that enjoyment with it. So, Chloe, I spoke to you when I was with you in Broome, given your teaching background and the nature of your questions and everything you're doing. And I said to you, have you thought about an instructor rating? Have you thought about it much more?
Mm-hmm. No. I couldn't be less interested in an instructor rating. I think, well, like what we
So tell us your thought process.
Yeah, I suppose you shed some light on it. For me, it's I don't have a passion for teaching initial skills. So I suppose when I became a teacher, I became a high school teacher to teach content, whereas I didn't want to teach kids how to write the alphabet. So I suppose that sort of slips into the fact that I would love to do, like I said, design feature, teach people how to fly a particular type of aircraft, do some ICAS training, those sort of things. But yeah, in terms of ab initio based stuff. Yeah, I think it's some people, yeah, I think I'm a little bit impatient.
Yeah, well, you even said it to me. Like, I don't even know how you're just sitting there and not freaking out with some of the fun maneuvers you were putting us through.
Oh, I just don't like them, hey.
I don't want to stall. We don't need to stall. Do we want to stall?
I'm not comfortable doing it. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, as I said to you then, I think part of that comes from having an instructor that's comfortable with that sort of thing, and their instructor's instructor passing it on, and like Hubert said as well, trying to leave people better than what you're doing as well, because there has been a bit of a slide in training. I've said it multiple times in the podcast episodes, and the industry is definitely seeing that. And I think exactly what Austin was saying, with the ability to, I could get a job now, but I think the Australian industry is as good as it is and professional and safe as it is because everyone's got other background experience to fall back on as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So what's your plans now? Like, are you happy where you are at the moment? Do you think, are you looking at a GA sort of path, or Aeromed or business charter or something? Are you looking at airlines maybe one day?
Yeah.
Have you done anything with your ATPLs?
So started ATPLs 2 days ago, probably a third of the way through systems.
Yeah, so why'd you pick systems first?
Probably because I just did GTE. So because I did my gas turbine review, there was like a lot of questions that I probably still had from that. And there's a lot of fresh knowledge. So being able to take that, like, it's immediately just, first topic in systems. It's just, the same. So that was probably why I picked it first. I was like, I can knock that out and hopefully have it done in 2 weeks or so. Being in Broome, my company pays us on a casual basis. So we're not expected to work sort of like the full-time 38-hour weeks unless we're flying. So it's kind of good going into the wet season. I can sort of try and knock out those ATPLs, try and self-study as many as I can. But yeah, look, in terms of future, I'm not really sure. I was very much set on the airlines, and I think I still am. I have a huge passion for getting people from A to B and providing a service. I suppose that's why I really love doing scenics. I like spending that time with the customer and providing them what they're paying for. My dad's been in the airlines, so I've seen that side of it. He's moved into freight, so I see that side of it as well. So in terms of the path I want to go down, I think regional airlines. I'm not someone that wants to sit still either. I don't want to do Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane every single day for the rest of my life. So going to more regional places and having a little bit more freedom in that sense and sort of seeing a bit more of Australia is, but it's no real cookie cutter fit. I'm happy to stay here in Broome for about 12 months and then just take the opportunities as it comes. I can't decide what the future is just yet.
Yeah. And are you feeling pressure from others around you? You're feeling like people are moving on and you should be too? Or do you think you're feeling like you're in a good spot and there is no rush?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are forcing themselves because those opportunities are there, that they're like, we've got to take them. And a lot of people sort of just want to get into the right-hand seat of an aircraft, and they're happy to sit there for a while and then get into the left-hand seat and they're happy to stay on that aircraft for the next 15, 20 years. For me, that's not what I want. I've been a teacher. I've had that sort of career for a while, to a point where I was like, I'm sick of getting up and doing the same thing every single day. GA, you're not going to be in it forever. And I can almost guarantee no one's really going to go back from airlines or from, RFDS or whatever you go into, that you're never going to go back to flying a 210. So just enjoy that opportunity while you've got it.
COVID accepted, because that did happen to some people.
Hopefully that doesn't happen
up
again.
In the territory.
Not by choice anyway. So yeah, I don't want to rush out of it. I'm enjoying the time here. I'm enjoying the low pay. But it's just an experience, and I would never have had this opportunity yeah, like I'm glad I took Broome. I'm glad that I've come here. I just don't see the rush out of it. Enjoy what I can do, get some turbine time, get some multi time, just enjoy the whole process and the journey that will get me. I got another 30, 40 years of career. So, enjoy it.
Yeah, good for you. All right, Andrew, you've been sitting there patiently, mate. How has it been with you? One of the things that's impressed me the most is your selfless nature. And here you are trying to get work yourself, yet you keep touching base with me, trying to help other pilots coming up to Darwin as well. How has that been? And what sort of challenges have they been facing as well that you've been sort of helping them through? Being the natural father figure that you are, and Hubert's much the same.
Yeah, I was actually just able to line someone else up with a job, actually. I heard someone else had moved on, and so there was potentially an opening, and that person didn't want to sort of publicise it too much because I guess they were going into a new role and they weren't necessarily sure how that might go. But I was able to make a couple of, kind of discreet phone calls and suggest someone should reach out to someone else. And it turns out, that person's now secured a job. And that just feels fantastic. I mean, it's just wonderful to help other people along on the journey. And of course, there is this sometimes sometimes it feels like a bit of a competition, or like we talk about, there's this pressure to sort of seek the next thing because someone else is, or everyone's trying to get to the pinnacle or whatnot. But look, I think it's wonderful to look both ways, to be able to aspire towards other people and sort of want to do well because other people are, but also to help those coming behind you as well. So I think for me, very much as well, when I was back there in Melbourne, I was thinking, look, I want to get up to Darwin, but all these questions: how do I get there? Do I take a car? Where am I going to live? How do you apply for a job? Who do you apply with? And being able to share some of those things. And obviously, your podcast was fantastic, and your Darwin top end seminar is really good for that sort of stuff as well. But I guess when you hear about other people and for me, it's terrific to be able to reach out and to help and obviously to celebrate some of those successes as well. So
Well, as I said, I absolutely been trying to help bridge that gap with the seminar that I've run, and I'll get that out online soon. But what are some of the challenges you're finding pilots coming up with? Are they coming up a bit clueless, or not in a disrespectful way, but just no idea what they're actually driving up into? Or
I think, the part of the challenge is, and this is like, I kind of like the analogies as well. It's almost like we can all plan as much as we like, and that certainly helps. And obviously, we talk about the 7 Ps of flying or whatever else in terms of the proper prior planning, preventing something poor performance or whatnot. But equally, sometimes it is just about right place, right time. And so I like the thing of almost, it's like you jump in the river, and you can sort of think, I'm going to swim across there and that's where I'm going to, kind of thing. But it's like, well, that sort of depends on how strong that current is and where it's going to take you. And I think to an extent, you almost need to just sort of also be prepared and flexible to see where it's going to take you. So, I remember listening to one of your seminars at one stage, and it was very much talking about the fact that, be prepared to come up to Darwin, and to not get a job, and to potentially have to be here for 3 months or 6 months, and to get other work and to do other things. And I was like, oh, geez, I'm not really sure if I'm, prepared for that, or if I'm able to do that financially and that sort of thing. And so in some ways, I talk about I was kind of lucky. I did get a job. I arrived in Darwin with a job. I was able to start straight away, but it wasn't a full-time job. So I was still able to get some sort of movement. I was progressing or whatnot, but I'm still sort of chasing that full-time job. And so it is a bit sort of industry dependent. And so there is timing around, obviously, the wet season as well, where there's this discussion at the moment. People need pilots, but they're also not necessarily in a position, because of the shortage of pilots that they've got, to actually onboard those people and to train them and to check them out. And then do they have enough sort of wet season experience themselves to be coaching, this new cohort that are coming through? So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, you sort of just you've got to take the leap of faith. You've got to do as much research as you can. You've got to try and be as well prepared, but then you've also just got to be prepared to be flexible. And obviously, get up here and get that other job, something to pay the rent or to pay the bills. And hopefully enable you to go and knock on the doors. And probably the other thing as well is obviously, I think you've touched upon, you might have even talked about this in that episode 69, the quiz nights or those other networking opportunities where you can get out there and meet people. Obviously, it certainly helps to know people within the industry. That'll no doubt open doors for you, hopefully.
Well, what tips would you give there? Because I swear you know more people up here than I do. I don't know how you did it. Does it take us through how you sort of built your little database there? Maybe it's just what you do.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, networking is obviously important, but a huge, and I think I've said this to you before, a huge amount of it has come back from your podcast and different things. But it's also, I guess, it's your schoolmates and keeping in touch with them, or it's about participating in industry stuff. So whether that's the CASA seminar that's happening and then going and introducing yourself, or talking to, who was the Qantas pilot that you had up the other day? I remember, seeing his face and it's like, oh, I've seen that guy before somewhere. But or Ray Wernley was the defence. He's an instructor, but he runs that course. That was a course that I sort of just participated in. It's an industry course, learning to try and prepare yourself better for tests or examinations or all that sort of stuff. But I don't know. I guess you've just you've got to make the effort and get outside of your comfort boundary and go and meet people and hopefully obviously it's sort of be a positive type of a person and a bit of fun to be around, I guess. And what I say, I mean, you want to sort of make a reputation, but a good reputation as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's a credit to you, mate. Like I said, it's a huge thing you're doing, and I really do hope that. I know you've just had a couple of opportunities which were just fantastic, and then just as quickly they disappeared. But you just haven't stopped, and I know the right fit and the right thing will fall in your lap very, very soon.
That's right. Yeah, a couple of false starts. I thought I was going down to do some survey there with Austin, but not with Austin, but with a competitor. But that would have been interesting work. But I'm sure it sounds like, and that's what I was saying before with COVID. COVID was quite a challenging time for those, I think, embarking on a career in aviation. But I feel like it was a bit of a bushfire that went through and really cleaned out the industry. I sort of did get a chance to meet a lot of people that were already in the airlines and that sort of thing. And those guys that had to stop and go and do absolutely something different for a period. Or I know people that were with Virgin, for example, on the wide bodies, and they lost their jobs. Many of them have since gone back, and now they're flying on the 737 and stuff like that. But it's cleared out a lot of people. There are a lot of people that retired early, and the signs are fantastic industry wide. That hopefully it continues and it keeps sucking people through, and there's a lot of opportunity for those that do the work, and hopefully there's lots of work for all of us into the future, and there's no more COVID-19s.
No, absolutely. None of us want to go back to there, I'll tell you what. All right, Carrie, so moving on to the type rating. I know the Braz is well considered one of the hardest type ratings you can do. So just for everyone listening, what sort of things did you do to help prepare yourself, and the biggest differences between that style of type rating training versus what you'd typically expect in a commercial school environment?
Yeah. Okay. So it's, I guess, anybody that's gone through, what we would colloquially call 61385 training, general competency training onto a new type of twin engine aircraft or a 210 or something, for example, when you come up to general aviation, there's a portion which covers a ground school looking at the systems on the aircraft and differences with what you might already operate. And then there's the flying side of things. So we typically go out, do some circuits, general handling, etc. I guess a type rating is that on steroids. And regardless of whether you do that with a third-party training provider like Flight Safety in America or, obviously the different simulators and training organisations around the world, or whether you do that with your own company, it's going to follow the same sort of process. So there'll be a ground school component which covers all of the systems of your new aircraft, and then there's the simulator, which is all of the flight training side of things. And the sim training is typically, you do a couple of sessions where you're getting to know where all the, dials and knobs and switches are. And then you're pretty quickly going to launch into emergency and abnormal procedures training, where you're going to have a look at all the worst case scenarios in terms of systems failures, including your engine failures and fires and things like that. And that's really typically what most of that type rating simulator training will be, is a lot of failure management. And then obviously at the end of that, you have a check. So in terms of preparation, I did a couple of type ratings, obviously, when I was flying for Lifelight on the Lear 45 and the Challenger, and I did those with third-party trainers. And those guys, they have a pretty solid process that they go through, typically 2 weeks to 3 weeks of ground school. The ground instructors are generally people that have been, they're towards the end of their career. They're experts in their aircraft. They run, ground school after ground school. They're not generally sim trainers. They're just ground school trainers. And they're generally really passionate and knowledgeable about the aircraft. So you learn a lot in those systems courses. And then the flight training in the simulator, there's not a lot of, because it's a third-party trainer and because typically they're in another country or another part of the country, there's not a lot of focus on radio work. There's not a lot of focus or any focus on local airspace knowledge, etc. So it's a pretty generic set of exercises, I guess. It's really literally just looking at the failure, the management, then move on to the next thing. Whereas with the BRAS type rating, our type rating training was done in-house. So the ground school was 2 weeks long, and then we get into the sim. And there is an expectation when you turn up to your own company's training environment that you are all over the aircraft, that you know the systems well before you even go through the ground school. And then when you get in the simulator, that not only do you know the company's SOPs for dealing with all the failures that you're going to have on the aircraft, but your radio work is totally up to spec. Your local area knowledge for all of the airspace and procedures where you're operating is there's not really any glossing over that stuff. It's all a part of it. And so
no being spoon-fed. Yeah.
No being spoon-fed at all. And so I found the BRAS type rating the hardest out of the three, because there was a higher standard expected in terms of your general knowledge, IFR procedures, multi-engine operations, the aircraft itself. And because all of those other elements were, I guess type ratings, as we know them in Australia, have developed out of an environment where, for example, with the company that I work for at the moment, typically we would take new candidates onto the aircraft that are operating currently IFR, multi-engine, quite often turbines, so are really current with the type of operation. Really, they're just learning the aeroplane, and our training syllabus and procedures have been developed for those sorts of candidates. Whereas these days, as you said earlier, we're getting people into the BRAS and into Alliance, onto jets that are coming out of GA. Sometimes off single engine aircraft, sometimes with very little, if any, IFR practical experience. So the training syllabus that we have at the moment, and it's being developed and it's growing, it's targeted at that higher level candidate, I guess, that has a set of currency and skills that will help them get through that training process a bit easier. So it can be really full on. If you're coming out of a GA operation off a single engine aircraft into something like a Brazilian type rating, you're going to be, flying by the seat of your pants and hanging off the tail through the process. So
and they have been dabbling with hiring pilots earlier than they would typically, the 1,500 hour mark too. Yeah. So how's that been going?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that goes across the board in the industry in Australia at the moment. We've got candidates that are going out of, first jobs in the industry straight into the big jets. So it's happening in all of the companies around Australia. So for us, it is a little bit of a fire hose. So, if we get hold of our candidates, the new guys that are coming onto the BRAS, for example, in the FO's positions, we'll try and intercept them, nice and early and get them, help them out with their preparation for starting that type rating. Most aircraft, you'll tend to find there's some sort of manual, like the flight safety manual, which takes the AFM or the AOM and consolidates it down into a practical textbook. If you can read that at least once, go through all the practice questions for each system in each chapter, get a hold of the AFM, learn all the limitations, learn all the memory items, and then if you've got access to SOPs, start running scenarios in your head where you're reading through, for example, a QRH item for an engine failure, and then having a read through the SOPs in terms of how the company is dealing with that, with standard calls, etc. There's a lot of preparation that can be done before you get down to the type rating, where that's going to help you get through it. But yeah, it's a pretty full-on procedure, also training process. And like I said, it looks as though the industry is starting to take that on board and recognise that there needs to be a bit more time put into these training programs. There's a couple of the bigger airlines, I understand, are now going from, what we would do with, say, a 7 to 9 sim sessions for a type rating, and they're doubling that. They're out for 14 sessions or 16 sessions. I think Qantas do nearly a month of ground school, and then they do a whole range of fixed base sims before they even put motion on and start with the proper type rating stuff. So industry is starting to recognise that, because we're bringing candidates in from all
walks of life,
all walks of life, and also with a huge range in experience, that they're really needing to go from having that higher target level in terms of training and not bringing it down as such, but getting training programs that are suitable for everybody from the lowest amount of experience up to the top. And I think that's the way, that's definitely the way it needs to go.
And how did you find, I guess the Braz is a bit of an older sim. How did you find that? I know the King Air translated very, very well to the real aircraft, but I guess the Braz being an older sim, there's a few shortfalls, apart from it not having a GPS.
It's pretty archaic, the sim itself is a big part of, or a big challenge in the type rating, because it is old. The visuals are pretty restricted, so it's not particularly realistic when it comes to transitioning from an approach through the minimas and down onto the runway. There's not a lot of perspective there, so it is a little bit harder. With something that's that old, and it doesn't have GPS. Our aircraft does, the simulator doesn't. So for me, coming from the aircraft on platforms that I was flying before with full glass cockpits and GPSs up the wazoo, to then have to remind myself how to fly a VOR arc, for example, using some ground-based aids and GPS, it's really challenging. And certainly if I'd had some currency with basic ground-based navigation and instrument flying, it would have made the process a little bit easier. But yeah, with those older sims, it adds another layer of challenge to it, because you're just not getting the same level and depth of knowledge and information out of your systems and out of your screens and instruments as you do in
and you have to validate the type rating with some circuits, is it? Or is it a full IPC in the aeroplane?
Yeah, that's right. So we have to finish it off with, we actually have to go into an RNAV, obviously, because we don't have GPS in the sim, and we do a few circuits. So that's the final step in the process. So, and look, in terms of how the aircraft flies versus how the sim flies, it's as good as it can be with that type of platform. But it's certainly, just little things like the friction on the trim wheel, for example. I was in the sim the other day, and the amount of pressure I put on the trim wheel in the aeroplane to move it a bee's whatever. I put the same amount of pressure on it in the sim, and it went whizzing away like there was nothing attached to it. So you have to remember when you're going from one platform to the other, the aircraft to the sim and back again, that there are those differences in the actual handling side of it, as well as the visual representation that you see out the screen. But it's all part and parcel, I guess. When you go to the sim, you're practicing the procedures that you might need in the worst case scenario, but you have to be cognizant of the fact that as a machine, the sim itself, feels a little bit different, operates a little bit different.
Yeah. So best tips for someone getting ready to step up into a big type rating? What would you recommend?
Do as much preparation as you can. And it doesn't matter what aircraft you're going on to, whether you're going on to a 380 with Qantas and they're giving you 6 weeks or 6 months of training, or you're going onto a Braz, is get a hold of all of the flight manual, the any textbook, flight safety textbook or book that you can, that takes you through the systems, learn your limitations, learn your memory items, learn your SOPs, do as much prep as you can. If you have the opportunity to get into jump seats, absolutely, that's going to sort of help you build the big picture of what you're about to go and
train your eyes where to look and that, where everything is.
Yeah, absolutely. But certainly before going into ground school, you want to have a good understanding of the systems, because quite often there's a lot of them on the more complex aircraft. And the ground school will touch on all the hot points and the key points, but they're not going to teach you the minutiae and detail of every single system, because you'll be there for months.
Yeah.
So you've really got to put a little bit of work in before you get down there, in order to get yourself ahead of the ground school, so you can follow through and pick up on those salient points that the instructors are giving you, rather than sort of sitting there hoping you'll have time to read about it later. You want to do it all, as much preparation as you can beforehand.
And how about the dreaded NDB? You guys still use that? Do you reckon that's something you still need to look at?
Do you know what? I think, like, coming from the training environment, the NDB, there's a few elements of using NDBs that actually helps you with orientation, with all of the other aids and approaches that you do. You know, it's a really good base to start from. So whilst you probably don't need it, and a lot of them are modern aircraft these days, and they probably don't even have them, they're taking the installations out around Australia. You know, there's only going to be so many left. I think, if you're about to embark on your instrument rating, and your wonderful instructor offers you an NDB, I'd say do it. You know, because at the end of the day, you're better off knowing how to use it and not ever needing it than the other way around.
Yeah, well, even the translation, just as an azimuth needle for using it with the behind the VOR on RP approach, just orientation, it still translates. So it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, when I operate around, you know, on our routes, I'll have every aid up that I can. So I'll have, if I'm passing an NDB, or if I'm going to an airfield that has an NDB, then I'll have that dialed up, because worst case scenario, if everything fails and I've got a little needle pointing to where the airfield is, it's not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty common SOPs.
And then, you know, when you go into places like Broome, that you're having to give them an NDB reference when you're on your way in. So I know the first time I did that, I was sitting there for a while trying to figure out, am I going too far? You know, it's certainly, you know, they're old school, but doesn't hurt to know what you're doing with them.
Yeah. So, Jared, with the instrument training that you guys are doing down at Rakwa there, are you finding students are sort of trying to get out of doing NDB work, or are you offering it, or what's sort of the go there?
I'm forcing it down their throat, yeah. You know, like Air Services has that NDB network that they've said that's going to stay in the country, the basic NDB infrastructure. And it's exactly that, you know, like Carrie's just made mention then, and by the way, Carrie, I just flew with Jim this afternoon. And they made that mention, you know, sometimes you need it for approaches, sometimes you'll need it for your alternates. One of the guys I used to work with works for Rex, and he sent me a screenshot on WhatsApp the other day, and he's like, have a look, here's my approach in via the arrival using the NDB in the Saab. So, you know, they're still getting used there as well. And you look at airlines and even places like Busselton as well, you know, you've got organisations where might be an arrival, NDB happens to be the aid, and what's going to be the most efficient way? Fly direct to the aerodrome via the arrival, drop in and do a circling approach, or are you going to deviate 15 miles off route to join the RNAV? If you're even in something smaller, if you're still burning 600 pounds of fuel an hour, that's a lot of extra fuel just for you to be able to make an approach in.
Yeah. Look, even with Chloe, when we were doing the NDB, everything's NDB bearing in and out of Broome. And she's like, well, how do we do this with just a GPS? So even the NDB skills translate across to using an RMI and, trying to work all that out. So I think there's still a hell of a lot of benefit in doing it, even when you've got a G5, G1000 and whatever else.
And even then, you know, like it's the Part 91 MOS at the moment stipulates for things like arrivals, you still need to have a ground-based aid to be able to do those. You question if an aircraft has two GPSs, surely they could do that because it's going to be more accurate than trying to follow the NDB as it flickers around. But yeah, that's what the regs still say as well, is that you need those to be able to do those arrivals.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's wrap things up. I'm just really grateful for everyone sharing their insights, and we could keep talking, but you know, it's getting late and we want to wrap things up. So, Hubert, before the baby wakes up, mate, any final advice for people in at any age, but specifically, looking at pursuing a career at a later stage in life? Any advice you give them?
Mate, stay on course, follow your dream, do what you have to do, be good to others, be fair to yourself, and don't give up, because it is very doable. Nothing in life is impossible. You just got to have the determination to reach a goal. That's anything, whether it's aviation or any career you choose, I think. But aviation is still possible. There's still lots of space in GA, and there's actually more space in GA now than there has ever been, because there's no one left. So, look, just go get it. It's doable.
Yeah,
good on you, mate. All right, Andrew?
I think Hubert absolutely just summed it up beautifully. And one of my favourite sayings, anything is possible. So, yeah, I suppose if you're dogged or determined, providing you don't give up. And that's probably the what I've noticed, going back to, again, starting with 88 other people in that classroom, and they did predict that within whatever it would be, it was weeks or months, there'd be this rate of attrition, and there was. But it's like those that haven't given up, those that just keep persisting, and even if it's the things like the ATPLs, which I've been having some fun with of late, the dreaded flight planning, people will overcome these things. If you do the work, you will eventually overcome them. So I certainly hope to continue on for a little bit longer or a lot longer. It's been wonderful, and look forward to meeting some of these people and hearing about many others as we continue to go forward. And to you, Trent, again, thank you so much for everything that you've done. I know I sort of joke about being one of your biggest fans, but I absolutely have been. The amount of information that you have shared with people, the level of inspiration and motivation that has provided, to all of your listeners. I used to talk about the fact that, half of these questions you'd love to go and ask your head of operations or your chief pilot or whatnot, but I talk about our school. Those people were always just very, very busy. They seemed very, they weren't happy to sort of talk to the RPL student or the PPL person that was kind of thinking about some of these questions. And your podcast has just shared so much to not only professional and commercial pilots, but the general aviator out there. Thank you to you, Trent.
Thank you, mate. Thank you very much. Austin, I think you gave some great ATPL advice before, but just any sort of words of wisdom you want to share with anyone, pursuing the big dream?
Just, I think Andy and Hubert, I'm sure everyone else will sum it up perfectly. It's just follow the dream, do what you got to do, stay true to yourself, and follow your gut. Especially in GA, where you'll get a lot of work pressure. Follow your gut, trust your training, trust your instructor, and everything will fall into place. Just enjoy where you are at the moment. Don't always try and rush to the next best thing. The grass is greener on the other side, but really enjoy what you're doing at the moment. If you're not happy with where you are, it's time to pack things up and move to somewhere that you really enjoy.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, I think the FOMO effect and the fear of missing out is big at the moment, but I just don't think there is any rush. There's plenty of time. All right, Chloe?
Yeah, I suppose it's just the same as everyone else. Like, just enjoy the journey. If it's something you want to do, work hard and do everything you can to get there. Just be persistent. Don't stop trying. I think being female in the industry, it also has its challenges. So any girls out there that are trying to make a break, don't listen to what the guys have to say, or if they try and put you down, just persevere through and hold your head high and show them the skills you've got.
Yeah, 100%. Jared?
Yeah, I'd say to everybody out there, don't give up. Learn from rejection as well. Know your weaknesses and work on those. Too often I hear people say after a short stint up north, oh, nobody's hiring, they don't want anybody like me, and they'll make an excuse. But quite often there's, we talk about with pilots and the right stuff. It might just be general life experience that you need to get, work on yourself. And eventually, as Hubert said there as well, you'll get there. There's plenty of jobs out there for people all ages. And above all and else that I tell everybody, remember, everybody makes mistakes. That's why pencils have erasers.
Definitely. All right. And Carrie?
Yep, I agree. Actually, with something Hubert said, be kind to others. Just thinking back over the course of the conversation tonight, every job that I've gotten has been through somebody that I've known in industry, and a lot of that came from my time at the Aero Club, where I got to know members, students, family members of members, yourself, and it wasn't about networking for the sake of networking. It was just enjoying the time in the aviation industry. And a bunch of people that are all passionate about the same thing, that naturally flows on to some really wonderful connections that you just don't know when that's going to come up and be, the thing for you. The reason I got the medevac job was through Kevin Lathbury, believe it or not. He 30 years ago worked with the chief pilot at the medevac company. And, and those sorts of connections are critical. But also, I agree, don't get caught up in the rush. Don't get caught up in the stuff to the airlines or whatever's happening at the moment. GA, turboprop flying, instructing, if you love it, spend your time there, make the most of it. The aviation industry is not going anywhere. Might shut down for a couple of years. I think we'll come back.
No, I think if anything, we've proven that we need it.
Cool.
And look, yeah, absolutely. I think what you say, people have asked me, where some of my opportunities have come from, and I think the key word is genuine networking, where I'm actually engaging with you because I like you, I want to help you, and I love what you're doing. Not necessarily because what you have and you might be able to give me, and it sometimes it works out, turns into helping out with ferrying an aeroplane, or might be a job connection from a ground instructor years later, or I know people that can hook up with others and whatever else. But we all know the authentic people in the world and those that are just there to serve themselves. And I think aviation is very good at sniffing those sort of ones out, and the good people get it. And ultimately, I think everyone in this group tonight is passionate about what they do. Isn't that right, Hubert?
Absolutely, love what you do, and like Chloe said, enjoy the journey. It's never about the outcome; it's always about the journey. Always.
Yeah. No, fantastic. All right, guys. Look, thank you so much for chatting to us. We've been going for a while now, but I think all valuable information, and I know everyone listening will get a hell of a lot out of it. So thank you for being part of this 100th episode and 2-year anniversary too, it's going to be. And here's to the next 100.
That's almost my age, hey?
All right. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks, Jack.
Cheers, Ben. See you, mate. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, there we go. Thank you again for everyone listening. And I hope you can take something away from everybody talking about their own personal career projects and the tips and tricks that they've come up with to share with you all. I think that's the biggest thing. This is the greatest network opportunity of all, this podcast, to be able to access people you normally never would be able to come across. And look, I just want you all to just enjoy your time in aviation and wish you all the very best and have the most prosperous career you possibly can. All right, so that is it for this episode 100 and 101. Thank you again for listening. As always, you can contact me in the content description of this episode, info@trentrobinsonaviation.com.au, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and on, what's that other one called? TikTok. Yep. Even there, I'll answer any questions you send. If you've got podcast ideas, fire them through. All right. In the meantime, stay safe, blue skies, and remember the golden rule: aviate, navigate, communicate. Cheers, everyone.